Japan, 1645. A man with a worn spine and quiet lungs climbed into the mountains as if he was climbing out of the world itself. Miyamoto Musashi was in his final season. He knew it. His hands had held blades for most of his life. His eyes had measured danger with a calm that made other men panic. People would later argue about the number of duels, the legends, the exaggerations, the worship of a name. But even the most skeptical record accepts this much. He lived close to violence. He lived closer to discipline, and he ended in solitude. He entered a cave called Reigando, not as a dramatic gesture, but because he understood something most people never accept. When life strips everything away, the only thing that remains is your mind. If your mind depends on applause, you collapse. If your mind depends on people, you collapse. If your mind depends on comfort, you collapse. So he wrote 21 lines, not a combat manual, a final code, a cold map for rebuilding a human being from nothing. The kind of map you only write when you have already buried illusions. And 4 centuries later, those lines still feel like they were written for the modern mind, because the modern mind is drowning in dependency. Dependency on attention, dependency on noise, dependency on approval, dependency on being seen. That is why people break when pressure arrives. They do not break because they are weak. They break because they built their identity on things that vanish. Today, you are going to learn 4 Japanese principles that reprogram the mind. Kaizen, Ikigai, Wabi Sabi, and the solitary path Musashi lived until his last breath. And I want you to understand what this is really about. This is not self-help. This is not motivation. This is not cute productivity. This is mental engineering. Because when everything crumbles, the person who survives is never the most talented. It is the person whose inner structure does not collapse. Chapter 1. The real collapse is invisible. Most collapses do not look dramatic. They look like this. You wake up later than you promised. You delay one task. You avoid one uncomfortable call. You tell yourself you will restart tomorrow. You distract yourself, then distract yourself again. And slowly, something changes inside you. You stop trusting your own word. That is the beginning of mental death. Not sadness, not stress, loss of self-trust. The brain does not panic because it is busy. It panics because it does not know what is stable. And when nothing inside you feels stable, you crave something outside you to hold you. A person, a relationship, a job title, a status, a group chat, a like, a notification, a constant stream of noise, so you do not have to hear yourself. That is the modern disease, not loneliness. The inability to stand alone without falling apart. Musashi saw this long before phones existed. He saw it in warriors who needed the crowd to feel alive, in men who fought well when watched and froze when alone, in skilled swordsmen whose technique was real but whose inner center was borrowed. They looked strong until life removed the support. Then they shattered. Chapter 2. Musashi before the legend. People love to imagine Musashi as born invincible. That fantasy is comforting because it allows you to believe you are simply missing a gift. It allows you to say, he was built different, so my failure makes sense. Reality is harsher. Musashi was not born calm. His early life was rough and unstable. He fought young, he won young, and he also carried a mind that was raw, aggressive, and extreme. If you study the way he describes strategy later, you realize something. He did not become great because he had a sword. He became great when he developed inner control that made the sword secondary. The sword was an extension. The mind was the weapon. And that is the shift most people never make. They collect tools and skills and knowledge, but their mind stays undisciplined. So when pressure arrives, they freeze. Knowledge without inner control is a heavy burden. It turns against you. It creates shame, because you know what to do, but you cannot do it. Musashi's later teachings were born from this realization. He had to evolve from a fighter into a strategist, and from a strategist into something rarer. A man whose movement did not depend on mood. A man whose action did not depend on approval. A man who could keep walking even when nobody clapped. That is why his 21 lines still cut through time. Chapter 3. The 4 principles that reprogram the mind. I am going to give you the 4 principles first, then we will weave them through a modern story. Kaizen is transformation through the invisible. Ikigai is direction that does not die when motivation dies. Wabi Sabi is productive peace with imperfection. The solitary path is the ability to continue without emotional dependency. And here is what matters. These are not independent ideas, they are gears. Kaizen without Ikigai becomes movement without meaning. Ikigai without Wabi Sabi becomes perfection paralysis. Wabi Sabi without Kaizen becomes acceptance that slowly turns into laziness. The solitary path without the others becomes isolation with no progress. But when they work together, something happens. Your mind becomes harder to break. Your identity becomes harder to steal. Your life becomes harder to derail. Chapter 4. The Modern Mirror. London, 2021. I want to tell you a story. Not a fantasy story, a story that could be your life. His name was Adam, 33 years old, quietly competent. A man people trusted because he always delivered. He worked in a high-status role. He had the kind of resume that makes families proud and makes friends compare themselves. He looked stable from the outside. From the inside, he was living on borrowed confidence. He was not aware of it because success can hide weakness for years. Then, 1 month changed everything. The company restructured. A new director arrived. Adam's team was cut. 1 meeting, 1 polite conversation, 1 professional email, and his identity disappeared. He told people he was fine. But the moment he got home, something ugly happened. He did not cry, he froze. Not fear like screaming fear. A blank. He sat on his couch, stared at the wall, and felt his brain refusing to move. The next day, he opened his laptop and scrolled for hours. He applied to nothing. He planned everything. He kept telling himself he was waiting for the right opportunity. Truth was simpler. He could not take a step without approval. He needed a sign. He needed certainty. He needed a guarantee. And life was not offering any. Within weeks, he began living like a man avoiding his own mind. He checked his phone constantly. He refreshed his email constantly. He watched short videos constantly. He talked to people constantly, not because he was social, because silence felt like suffocation. And it got worse. His relationship began to rot. Not because his partner hated him, but because she watched him slowly lose his internal structure. She watched the same man who once led meetings now struggle to send a simple email. She would ask, "What are you going to do today?" He would answer, "I do not know." And at first, she tried to soothe him. After months, her softness turned into fatigue. Not anger, fatigue. Because when you depend emotionally on others to keep moving, you quietly drain them. One night she said, "I miss who you were." And Adam said something that exposed the truth. "I miss him too." That was the moment he realized something that terrified him. He had built his identity on an external role, not on an internal foundation. So when the role died, his self died with it. Chapter 5. The first principle. Kaizen. The mind cannot resist what it cannot feel. Adam was desperate. He tried motivation. He watched discipline videos. He wrote morning routines. He bought books. It worked for 2 days, then collapsed. Because motivation is emotional, and emotions are weather. What he needed was structure that does not care how he feels. One day, in a used bookstore, he opened a book on Japanese discipline. It mentioned Kaizen, but it also mentioned something older that matters more for this story. Shugyo, austere training, not improvement as comfort, improvement as forging. And the author wrote a line that landed like a stone. Big change triggers fear. Small change slips past the guard. Adam finally understood why he kept failing. Every time he tried to restart, he demanded a dramatic version of himself. Wake early, gym, perfect diet, perfect productivity. His brain read that as danger, so it resisted. The solution was humiliatingly small. He made a rule: 2 minutes. Every day he would sit down for 2 minutes and open a document titled Rebuild. No writing required, just opening it. Day 1 felt stupid, day 2 felt pointless. Day 3 felt slightly easier. By day 10, the resistance weakened, because the mind does not fight an action that feels harmless. 2 minutes became 5, not because he forced it, but because something inside him remembered movement. Then something stranger happened. His confidence did not return as a feeling. It returned as evidence. He began trusting himself again because he was keeping promises, even tiny ones. That is Kaizen. Not improvement as a motivational slogan. Improvement as psychological reconditioning. Your brain stops fearing action when action becomes normal. And this is what Musashi did. He refined basics until they were not choices, they were identity. That is why the man in the cave could write, "Never stray from the path," because to him, the path was not an idea. It was a daily relationship with discipline. Chapter 6. Kaizen applied to real life. This is how you apply it. You pick one stuck area, not 10. 1. Then you choose the smallest action that still counts as movement. Examples: career, 2 minutes opening your job search page, not applying, just opening. Health, 10 push-ups, not a full transformation. 10. Finances, 1 bank statement opened, not a full budget, 1 statement. Learning, 1 page read, not a chapter, 1 page. Then you repeat until it stops feeling heavy. Only then do you increase. This is why Kaizen changes people. It builds a pattern of non-resistance, and once resistance dies, discipline becomes natural. Chapter 7. The second principle. Ikigai. Direction is what survives the bad days. Kaizen gave Adam movement, but it did not give him meaning. He could move and still feel empty. That is the next trap. People build habits with no direction, then wonder why they still feel dead. Musashi understood something brutal after years of violence and victory. Victory without meaning is noise. So he began studying beyond the sword. Strategy, art, observation, the deeper patterns of life. Not as entertainment, as an expansion of the way. Ikigai is often marketed as happiness. In reality, it is orientation. It is the reason you can suffer and still keep walking. Adam realized his old life had no real direction. He pursued prestige because it looked safe. He pursued status because it looked respected. He pursued approval without realizing he was living for an audience. So he took a notebook and answered 4 questions with no performance. What activities make time disappear for me? What do people consistently say I am good at? What problems do I feel pulled to solve? What would people pay for that is honest and valuable. His answers surprised him. He loved simplifying complex things. He was good at teaching. He cared about helping people build structure. He could turn that into consulting and training. For the first time in a year, his mind felt quiet. Not excited, quiet. Because direction calms the nervous system. When you know where you are walking, you stop scanning every side road. Ikigai is that, not a mood. A compass. Chapter 8. Ikigai is not comfort. Musashi's purpose was not happiness. Many people misunderstand this. They want Ikigai to feel pleasant. Musashi's path was not pleasant. He chose mastery, he chose solitude, he chose discipline that most people would reject. His writings prove that he did not seek pleasure as a foundation, he sought the path. And that is why his mind became unshakable. A man who relies on pleasure cannot remain consistent. A man who relies on meaning can survive discomfort. Adam began building around meaning, not mood. He wrote one teaching post per day. He refined it slowly. He began helping a few people for free, then he charged. Not because he was chasing money, because he was building a life that matched his inner direction. Chapter 9. The third principle. Wabi Sabi. Imperfection that moves is stronger than perfection that stalls. This is where most disciplined people still die. They get movement, they get direction, then they sabotage themselves with perfection. Adam began writing, he began building, he began improving. Then he started rewriting everything 10 times. He would record a lesson and delete it. He would plan a course and delay it. He would compare himself to people who looked polished. And his mind whispered the same poison. You are behind. You are not ready. You will embarrass yourself. That is when he stumbled across something about Wabi Sabi, the Japanese acceptance of imperfection as reality, not as failure. Not glorifying brokenness, but refusing to pretend that life is clean. Musashi embodied this. He used what worked, even if it looked crude. He did not worship elegance. He worshipped effectiveness. Wabi Sabi is not an excuse to be sloppy. It is permission to start. Because starting is the real barrier. Once you start, refinement becomes possible. If you do not start, nothing exists. Adam launched an imperfect workshop. Bad lighting, simple slides, nervous voice. He expected humiliation. Instead, people thanked him, not because he was perfect, because he was real. That is a painful truth for perfectionists. People connect to honesty more than polish. Wabi Sabi broke his paralysis. And once paralysis broke, Kaizen could take over again. He improved version by version. Chapter 10. The fourth principle. The solitary path. The mind that does not beg. Now we reach the hardest part. You can have habits, you can have purpose, you can accept imperfection and still be weak. Because weakness is not always laziness. Sometimes it is emotional dependency, needing reassurance, needing attention, needing someone to keep you moving. Musashi wrote lines that sound harsh because they are truthful. Respect the sacred, but do not count on help. Meaning, do not wait to be carried. Do not wait for rescue. Adam realized he was still addicted to external signals. He checked his old colleagues. He tracked likes. He waited for messages. On days the world did not respond, he felt empty. So he made a vow. He would build without being seen. He deleted the apps that pulled him into comparison. He stopped measuring his progress through other people. He began living inside his own path. At first, silence felt heavy. Then silence became clean. Then something changed. He began acting without needing emotional payment. He worked whether he felt good or not. He created whether people noticed or not. That is the solitary path. Not being antisocial, being internally self-sufficient. When you do not need the world to clap, you become dangerous in the best way, because nobody can stop someone who does not require approval to continue. Chapter 11. The disease of our time. People confuse loneliness with solitude. Loneliness is pain from disconnection. Solitude is strength from inner stability. The modern world trains you to fear silence, to fear being alone with your own mind. That is why the phone gets checked constantly. That is why the brain feels itchy without stimulation. That is why people cannot sit still. It is not technology that destroys people. It is the fact that technology becomes a pacifier for inner disorder. Musashi chose the opposite. He walked into silence to write his final code, because silence reveals reality, and reality is where rebuilding begins. Chapter 12. The system. How the four principles create an unbreakable mind. Here is the full machine. Kaizen makes action small enough to be daily. Ikigai makes action meaningful enough to be sustained. Wabi Sabi makes action possible even when imperfect. The solitary path makes action independent of external validation. Together, they create a person who can survive collapse, a person who does not freeze, a person who does not beg, a person who does not wait. Not because they feel confident, because they built a structure. Chapter 13. Your rebuild plan. Start today. Do not romanticize this. Do not turn it into entertainment. Do it. Here is the exact plan. Pick one area of your life that is stuck. Then apply the 4 principles. Kaizen. Choose the smallest daily action that counts as movement. Make it so small you cannot argue with it. Do it every day for 30 days. Ikigai. Write answers to the 4 questions. Be honest, not impressive. Extract a direction that feels clear, even if it scares you. Wabi Sabi. Start before you feel ready. Publish the imperfect thing. Launch the early version. Let reality educate you. The solitary path. Cut one dependency. Stop checking someone who drains you. Stop comparing yourself daily. Stop waiting for approval to take a step. Build in silence until your mind becomes calm without an audience. Chapter 14. The closing. Reigando cave again. Imagine the cave again. A man near death writing 21 lines. No crowd. No applause. No disciples holding his hand. Just a human being and the truth. That is the place where real wisdom comes from. Not from performance. Not from trends. Not from a motivational voice screaming at you. From the quiet knowledge that life will strip things away. Your looks fade. Your status shifts. People leave. Plans collapse. And when that happens, the only thing that matters is what remains inside you. If what remains inside you is discipline, you survive. If what remains inside you is purpose, you survive. If what remains inside you is acceptance of imperfection, you survive. If what remains inside you is the ability to walk alone, you survive. This is why Musashi's final code still travels. Because it is not about the sword. It is about the mind that can rebuild itself from nothing. So do not wait for a collapse to teach you. Start your Kaizen today. Find your Ikigai with honesty. Move with Wabi Sabi, imperfect but real. And train the solitary path until you no longer require external validation to stay alive. When pressure comes, you will not freeze. You will do what you practiced. And if you practice correctly, you will keep moving. That is the whole path. That is the reprogramming. That is how you become a person who cannot be broken by silence, failure, or the absence of applause.